Are you trying to run from something?
Mm-hmm.
Are you trying to escape a feeling that you may have?
Yeah.
Have you just been through a breakup and you just want to throw everything and cut your hair off and move to a new city? Like,
and welcome to Beta Haus.Life, the podcast where we get to talk about our journey and then also get to share other great people's journeys. And I'm really excited today to have Lauren Allen here with us in the studio.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here with you.
Lauren has the beautiful title of being the first person to record at Beta Haus Studio.
Yeah. First client.
Yeah, before Ben and I, well, we had recorded, but, it was like first outside, we were in here testing things and getting it ready. But we're not finishing, we're in the brand spanking middle of the whole topic of when to know to make a hard turn in life. We had a chapter with focus and flexibility, and now we're getting into when do you know it's not just a lane change in life, but it's time to make a hard shift with it. And we've shared our story about coming out here and job changes and things. And Lauren, I love your stories that you have of the changes you've made in life. So you're going to get a chance to share those today, and you guys are going to get a chance to hear that, which is just incredible. And I've enjoyed getting to hear all these different stories with this one because it's been a lot of similarities, but a lot of things that are very unique to circumstances. And the beauty is nobody can tell you for sure when to make a change other than you, but there are some flags you should look at.
Yeah, I think I feel flags, and to understand what that feeling feels like for everyone is just very different.
So give us a little bit of your background.
So I spent, I'm from the South, much like you guys, and I grew up in Georgia, born in South Carolina. Feel very deeply and passionate about my roots of being a Southern girl. But I really developed my career out in Colorado. I got moved to Denver for a company that I worked for and spent 15 plus years in more of a project management, large global companies, and I pivoted 10 years later, and now I moved to San Diego a little over 2 years ago, and started the entrepreneurial journey, much like everyone else who moves to San Diego.
So how did you know it was the right move? Let's go back to first going to Denver.
Okay.
To leave the South, leave what was comfortable, and go to Colorado.
So I have to go back one step.
Okay.
I decided to do college a little differently and studied abroad. And I feel like that was kind of my first step in learning the transition and how comfortable it actually can be of I wouldn't say comfortable, but how to take fear and put it to the side and try something new. Even though I got on the plane, I traveled to London by myself. I was the only person from my school to go. And I met the most amazing people, and we are still friends 16 years later. I can't even remember how long that's been. But that was my first bug of trying something different. And it felt really good. I don't know, I have to go back to the feeling. I just felt like there was something more to college. It had to be more fun than just going to class. And I was like, there has to be a way to do this even cooler. So that's how I ended up going to London, because I was like, let's just do something different here. And then the job that moved me to Denver, I had just bought a house. And decided 6 months later that I wanted something different. And I call buying my first house at 25 my worst mistake, because I still own that house.
Wow. So real estate mogul as well.
Real estate mogul, yeah. So I still own that house, and I'm like, it's just been the nightmare. It never was a great idea, but it happened. But it wasn't fulfilling. It didn't fill this void of, I don't know, I felt this void. I felt like there was something else in life that I had to do, and it wasn't living in my hometown. It wasn't buying the house in my hometown, living a mile from my parents. It was something else. So I actually put a plan together and put a bug in the vice president's ear of the company that I worked for and said, I know more about the company than anybody else because I was the executive assistant to the CEO president, and I traveled with him. So I learned everything about the business. And we were opening a new office in Dallas, and I said, who better to go open this new office with this new VP than me? Because I know how the president and CEO wants to run this company. So the vice president in Georgia said, that's a great idea. I was like, yeah, it was mine. I'm just glad you think it's yours.
Yeah.
So I was moving to Texas, Dallas, Texas, and then 2 weeks before I was to move, I already had everything set up to move to Texas. The new boss called and said, I really need you to go to Denver. We'll pay for your housing. We'll pay for everything. But we're reorganizing the office. So I need you to go to Denver to do the same thing that you were going to do here in Dallas, like to set it up, get the standards back up to par of what the company wants. And as soon as you finish that, you can come back. You can move on to Texas. So it was only supposed to be a temporary job. So I only had 2 week notice. I quickly bought a 4-wheel drive car.
Yeah, to deal with the snow.
Because I'm like, oh God, when did I move there? September. So I knew snow was coming. So yeah, I shifted. I moved to Denver with a 2 week notice, and I stayed for 10 years. Because then he was like, okay, we're good. Are you ready to move to Texas? And I'm like, do I have to? Like, I really love it here. Yeah. So he's like, you can do whatever you want to. So yeah, I stayed in Denver for 10 years. So it was just kind of like shift after shift.
So little changes, but that made big changes. So it was, it wasn't so much that you were saying, I'm going to change everything. You were taking a next step.
Taking next steps in my career.
Yeah.
But being open to making moves.
Yeah. Big steps.
Big, like leave everything that I knew.
How did your parents take that?
They were just convinced I would eventually move back to the South.
Okay.
Yeah. So
it was temporary for them.
They were you were temporarily moving out of the state. I was always going to come back.
So you're in Colorado, Denver, doing that life. What made the shift to now come to San Diego?
So after being there for 10 years and I bought another house.
Do you still own that one?
No, I sold that one. I sold that one. The Denver market is much better than the Georgia market. I started to have I talk about this feeling. If you listen to episode 1 of my podcast, I say that it all started with a long weekend here in San Diego. And there's a whole backstory of why I was coming to San Diego for that weekend, but we'll stick to this part. I've always been a water girl, and I just felt at home and at peace and all right with my soul watching the sunset on Sunset Cliffs. And I just kind of sat with that and said, that's interesting. It feels good. And then I came back to Colorado, or back to Denver, was living my life, but everything kind of like started to, I would think about San Diego, I'd think about that trip, and I would think about that sunset, and I'm like, what if I moved there? I have this feeling that I needed to live here, and I've never felt that from traveling anywhere else in the U.S. or the world. Like I love the Bahamas, but I never wanted to live there. I just want to like go and have a great weekend or a week there.
So you weren't the person, because there are people out there that no matter when they take a vacation, they cry when they leave because they're ready to move there, like every single vacation. Like it doesn't matter where it is. Like, I love Orlando now. Now I really love Tallahassee. Now I really love Dallas. Now
I only cry when I have to leave the Bahamas.
Okay.
But it's not that I wanted to live there. I just don't want vacation to be over.
Right. Those are different things. Yeah. This is the whole, I'm like starting to plan how I'm going to live, in all these places.
I've never really felt like I was like, okay, vacation's over. But it wasn't over for San Diego, and I can't explain that, besides it just felt like I had to be here for some reason. And I just, but then I started to think about, like, are you trying to run from something? Are you trying to escape a feeling that you may have? Have you just been through a breakup and you just want to throw everything and cut your hair off and move to a new city? Like, come on, ladies. We know that that's what happens. We cut our hair and we want to move. And so I started evaluating, like, why do you want to move? And sitting with that till I could make the actual distinction of none of those are going on in your life. You want to move because you're just ready. And then, like, I sat with that for probably about 6 months before I even started verbalizing it. And then I started testing my thought process, like, on a few friends that I trusted that wouldn't question me. So I just started, like, just hinting around of, like, if I moved, how would you feel? And the first person I told was my girlfriend Mary, and she said, I'd really miss you a whole lot, but I would visit you. And I was like, that's what I needed to hear. I didn't need to hear, like, that's a terrible idea. I got that from some people, and I just had to, like, cut that, like, put up a wall, basically, and be like, protect myself from the people who didn't believe in me. And
there is a difference between the people who come to you saying, that's a horrible idea because I don't feel you've thought about this. Right. And they're bringing up a legitimate concern, not just an overall, that stinks.
Yeah. There's if, you know, it's really funny. My parents, they have legitimate concerns. And then they recently sold their house and moved to another city, and I did the same thing back to them, and they were like, you know how we questioned you? Like, we know you're questioning us. But you know how you said it wasn't, or, like, I didn't really say this, but I was like, it's not really any of your that's not your choice. And they're like, basically said it back to me of, like, it's not your choice if we sell the family home and move to a new city. And I'm like, oh, okay.
But it's my room.
It's all the things that I loved in that house. And they're like, you haven't lived here in, like, 20 years. So you've made the decision. And it's one thing to make the decision, because I've even known people who go so far as to make a decision, and then we're going to do that in a month. We're going to do it in 2 months. And it keeps getting put off. So how did it go from idea, decision to action? So it was probably about the summertime, and there was kind of a blow up at work, and I said, okay, it's time to leave. It's time to leave this company. But there was a really big project coming up, and I was like, I have to do this project. Like, I'm really passionate about what it is, and I wanted it for my resume because I wasn't dropping out permanently. Like, I just wanted to move to San Diego and find a new job here. So I need that project on my resume. And so then I had to look at, I didn't want to pay capital gains on the sale of my house. Right. So I had to look back and say, okay, you closed on your house a year and a half ago. You can't sell it until basically January of 2017. And so that was kind of like my timeline. I got to stay in this house until January and close after. So I had I was in a permanent residence for 2 years, and I want to finish this project. So those were the two timelines that I had kind of set in stone. So I knew that everything in project world is like, you have your time, you have your end date, and then you just kind of back up and, like, okay, when do I have to start doing all the things that prepare me to get to this date? So that's what I did.
And then the day came.
The day came. I sold my house, quit my job, and moved to San Diego on January the 19th of 2017.
So that happened fast. Like, from your January 1 day, you know, like when you could sell the house and, like, packed up, gone.
Yeah. I closed on my house 2 days after the 2-year like 2-year date.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, so I basically, and I talk about this all the time, I'm a project manager by trade. And I say trade because it's not who I am, it's not what I do, it's a skill that I have.
Right.
So I want to make that as like, when you start identifying yourself as a title, I feel like that's where you kind of get into some stickiness and not understanding your value and your worth. But if it's a skill that you associate with, then it's a little easier to say, I'm a project manager by trade.
Right.
So I basically wrote out a project plan. The way that I've always worked is kind of bucketed tasks. So I was like, I looked at all my finances, I looked at all the things that had to happen with the house, what had to happen with the job, and the move, and then I just started detailing out all the things that needed to happen during, like under like the financial bucket, the house bucket, and then just started crossing things off one at a time. And working with my real estate agent and I are still really great friends out of Denver, and he kind of said, okay, this is the timeline that we need to put your house on the market to sell it by a certain time. I had 3 offers in 24 hours, and like I just sobbed when we sold the house. And people are like, why are you crying? And I was like, it's here. Like, this was the last piece that had to happen. So,
and something that historically has been out of hands of people a lot of times. Like, it used to be, you put a house on a market and you hope to get offers, and then it was a lot longer of a process. We sold a house and it was like, oh, we've got like 4 offers and we still have people scheduled to come, and it was a whole different weight, selling a house in the current market than it used to be.
Oh, it was insane. The person that I sold it to, if she listens to this, I hope she laughs at herself, but she was the first offer. Okay. And I just hadn't responded yet because there was an open house the next day, but we had a snowstorm.
Sounds like Denver.
The next day. And I still got 2 more offers during that time, but I hadn't responded yet, only because like we had a snowstorm. And she came back and overbid on herself. Because she was afraid that I had too many offers. I did have competing offers, but she overbid on herself, and I was like, sold.
Like, you want it that bad. You are willing to fight.
You can have it. Anyway, I just thought it was the funniest thing. My real estate agent just died laughing. He's like, so she's upped her offer. And I was like, it's a sign. It's a sign.
We're going with her.
Yeah. Yeah, so my mom came out and for a week before and a week after the move, and I can't thank her enough for doing that for me. She was like, I want to help you in this transition. What can I do? And I said, you can actually pack my house. Like, I'm trying to wrap up this really big job, and I hadn't given notice yet, but I needed support on like the back end of like just the planning side of it. So my mom comes out, and then I just was doing everything by myself. And so when she got there, I just stopped making decisions, and I was like, whatever, just pack. I don't care how you do it, what happens. The truck's going to be here in a certain day. We just have to have the house packed by that time. And she really just like took over and just started making decisions for me. And I just couldn't say enough how much I appreciated not have to do that part all on my own, because I was exhausted by this time.
Yeah.
So then we moved to San Diego, and I let her continue make decisions. And then she stayed with me for a few more days when we got here, and then I eventually moved into my little house.
And you talk about your experience on Sunset Cliffs, and you did settle in Ocean Beach.
Yeah, I lived down the street from that spot.
Yeah, you were like focused, and sometimes finding a space, like the market out here, rentals, owning, whatever, is so tight. Sometimes trying to get in that ideal perfect spot is way trickier than it seems.
Yeah, it was easy but this was like 2 years ago. There's been a lot of transition in OB since I've been here. Ocean Beach is referred to as OB. But the place that I now live in was under construction. It was these old, about 100-year-old little cottages in this one little community. We're all like fenced in. There's seven houses, and they were being remodeled and re-landscaped at the time, and they had under new ownership, so they're all empty.
Ooh, perfect.
Perfect. And so I lived in the construction re-landscaping zone for a couple of months, and now it's like 2 years later, and it's beautiful. It's still like this little oasis behind the gate. So
your little hidden gem.
Yeah.
You get to enjoy it. And the parrots are there now.
They've always been here. The OB parrots are incredibly loud. Lots of people love them and find them endearing. When you don't have a schedule and you don't have to be up at, a certain time in the morning, like, they're super annoying.
I could see that.
Yeah.
This is my first, time getting to experience them. So getting to go up there, and it's like, they're still quirky to me. So they're still in that, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
I've never been around wild parrots before.
Yeah, they gather. I love and I hate them.
Yes.
I love to see them. It makes me happy. I'm like, oh yeah, this is, they're my OB parrots. And then, like I said, in the mornings when they're just screaming at each other for no reason, that early in the morning, I'm like, shut up.
So you've made it to San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
So hard turn moving here. How did you go through the adjustment process so that hard turn didn't become a U-turn? Meaning, I'm here for a little bit, never mind, it wasn't what I thought, I'm going back.
That's a good question. Everybody always told me to give it 2 years. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of said, okay, I'll give it 2 years. And it really took 2 years. I started finding my community in the entrepreneurial world very early, but I didn't find my social life.
Yeah.
For really 2 years. And San Diego is such a transitional location with lots of people coming in all the time that I met some really great people, but then they moved away. And I'm still in touch with them, but it hurt. I was like, oh my God, hold on a second. I had to start over again. So I even in the 2 years that I've been here, I've had to start over multiple times. And just being okay with that has been it's just been a lesson in friendships of and relationships come and go, and how to accept them for what they are for that time.
So you had a physical switch and turn in coming out here. Let's go in a little bit to starting a new business too, on top of everything, because you've moved to a new location and now you're starting a business where you don't have roots.
Right.
It's not like you have a book of business or clients or, even leads. So what's that like?
Well, when you put it like that, it sounds crazy. But I just, so I started Right Hand Business Coach 2 years ago. And I started it because one of my friends just was continuing to ask me business questions, and I was like, I've always been kind of that person that people come to for business advice, so I might as well just start selling my advice. And there was never a question of how am I going to get clients. It was more of how do I build this business, because I knew that I had a skill that people wanted. So the transition of starting a business with no roots, I just believed that I could, and there wasn't anybody tell me that I couldn't. So I started networking groups immediately, found some really amazing women's groups. Unfortunately, it's no longer together, but we're still all friends. It was called the Boss Babes Brunch Club. Okay. And they were based in Encinitas, and they did a 6-week work share. And so every Tuesday I drove up to Encinitas, and I was building Right Hand Business Coach full time, but during that 6 weeks is when I actually launched the business, because I had the support of all these women. That's where I learned how to use Instagram. My girlfriend, who's a lawyer, had helped me kind of walk through the LLC documentation, who has since now taken all the photos for Corporate School Dropout because she loves taking photos on the side. So I started building kind of a network of people that I trusted, and then we started sharing back and forth. So that's kind of where I started my first referrals and building the business.
And it's interesting, and I'm going to ask questions. It might seem a little off topic,
Okay.
but for people who are in your shoes right now, where you were then, and changing and getting from that transition from the work share to paid clients, you know, and actually making a little bit of money so I can pay rent, you know?
Yeah.
What is that like?
That's still a daily struggle because I never was a salesperson. Like I said, I was a project manager by trade. So learning how to sell your services for me is continually a new process. It's never something that I've just nailed. So I would say referrals for me were the easiest because somebody had already worked with me, or the referral came from like my designer, Michelle. I got a lot of people from her because she's like, well, I work with you all the time. I already know you as a person, and I know how you interact and how you work with people. And so that was an easy sell for them because Michelle already was able to vouch for me and my work ethic. So that's really how I got started of like selling like business coaching services and it has been the easiest transition is working with referrals. Like I haven't met anybody that I've just said, hey, I'm a business coach, and then they say, okay, I'm going to spend all this money on you. So
do you think that having that focus of starting the business helped you in your transition to a new place?
Yeah, because it got me out and got me into the community, which has always been something that's really important to me. I was very active in the Denver community, and I had a really large network. But I would say my network here in San Diego is even bigger because I started sooner. Like I started building those connections and working like diligently to meet more people, like on purpose. So,
yeah, I can say that we were in one city for 20 years. Our network here is bigger than it was there after 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird how that can happen, you know, that you end up in these groups. And I think the city is built for networking. And you brought up something interesting, talking about your lawyer who was taking photographs for you. Because I feel like everybody here has a side hustle.
Yeah.
And that's not everywhere else. And so I laugh because the lawyer's a photographer on the side.
Yeah. And she's a wonderful photographer. and yeah, like it's more of like everybody just, to me, like all my friends do such cool things. And to be able to share the experience with them and for them, like has been really fun. I feel like as an entrepreneur, you get to explore and you get to expand, and there's opportunities out there to do anything and everything, and you get to choose on how you utilize that.
Very good. Thank you for sharing all of that and your journey out here. We did get to meet at a meetup, so another networking event, you know, where you just come together and get to know people, and that's great. So we're coming to the end right now, so we're going to start wrapping it up. So first thing, what are you working on right now? What do you want to plug? What is your thing that you want to shout out to make sure people know about?
Well, I actually want two things.
Okay, you can. I'll let you have two.
Two things. So as I have talked, I did develop the company Right Hand Business Coach. So I work with people who are leaving the corporate industry and help them plan and launch their business. Corporate School Dropout is my favorite new project where I interview people who have already left the corporate world and are doing amazing things with their lives that is not climbing a corporate ladder. They have found ways to be successful, build businesses, and they're thriving doing the things that they love. And the whole podcast is meant to be inspirational to the person who is still sitting at their corporate desk, like knowing that there's a different way, but they don't know how to get there. So sharing stories of people just like them who have made that transition.
And that is I love that idea, like that target audience of like these people who are maybe they're like really sick of that 9 to 5 or just a job that's not fulfilling, or knowing I can do this. I can take what I know here and apply it in a totally different way.
Absolutely. Everybody has such an interesting story that's on the podcast, but a lot of it is very much the same, of taking the same skill. The one aspect that they love about their job or their skill that they just love to do, and then, yes, transitioning to a new audience.
So that is great. Now we're going to take our selfie.
Okay.
So those of you who are following us on social media, you know that we do this once. It's, I guess, technically not a selfie because Ben typically takes it. So we smile for the camera.
It's a Eufy.
It's a Eufy. Yeah, I guess that was the right term for it.
1, 2, 3. We'll do another one in case somebody's blinking, and another one because Beth likes to blink.
Yes, I do blink. I'm a blinker. He's going to double check them. But we do that so that if you're following us on social media, you knew who was in the studio today getting to record with us, and you get a sneak peek at upcoming episodes that way. So if you are not already, you can follow us on Instagram. We are at Beta Haus Studio, as well as on Twitter, same handle at Beta Haus Studio, as well as we have a Facebook, LinkedIn, all of those things that you're expected to have anymore. And Ben will be really nice, and when we post this, that will all be in the description. So if you didn't catch it there, you can find it on those. So thank you, Lauren, for coming in today.
Thank you so much.
It has been so much fun to have you and to get to talk with you while you're recording.
Yeah.
Not just come in and check your levels.
Yeah. It's been great. Thanks so much.
And we will see you guys next week.